How's it going, everybody? It's C-RadTV back here with another video. So, of course, it is time for another Detroit Lions 2020 NFL Draft Preview. So, in the last draft preview, we finished up the trenches by looking at the top Day 3 defensive lineman prospects. And in this video, we're going to continue wrapping up the defense here. In this video, we're going to focus on the top Day 3 linebacker prospects and wrap up the linebacking core for this year's class, since it's a pretty good class still. You know, even if we do get Simmons with the 3rd or the 5th pick, you know, I think it's still best to get another linebacker too for depth. So yeah, anyway, with all that out of the way, there's still some solid names on the board still we haven't gone over, so we'll go over them and see what we have. Let's jump right into it, folks. So, starting off with inside linebackers, the first linebacker we're going to go over here, hailing out of LSU, standing 6'4", weighing 233 pounds, we have Jacob Phillips. So, for Jacob's strengths, he has good side speed, strength, physicality, straight line speed, strong first step downhill, attacks blockers proactively, shows the ability to stack, fill holes, shed. He pursues with great effort and consistency. Often makes plays late in the down, but he's a reliable tackler against a variety of body types no matter what. Has long and strong arms. He wraps up rather than going for the big hit. Production over the 2 years in SEC, it says a lot. He won't shy away from a bigger stage. So overall in college, in 2017 as a freshman, he sat behind Devin White. In 2018, he lined up alongside Devin White as a starter. Had a productive year in 2018 with 87 tackles. 5.5 tackles for loss, a sack, and 3 passes defended, and a pick 6. And then when Devin White moved on to the NFL last year in the draft, when White got drafted by the Buccaneers, Jacob Phillips, he took a larger role for the Tigers this year, played a big part in LSU's national championship title win over Clemson. For 2019, Jacob, he finished the year with 113 tackles. 7.5 tackles for a loss, and a sack. And now Jacob Phillips is declaring for the draft as a junior. In terms of his weaknesses, though, despite the straight line speed, though, he's not mobile enough to be a 3-down linebacker in the NFL. He's very stiff moving laterally or backward. He struggles to open his hips quickly and trigger toward that ball. He has a lack of mobility excalibrated by poor awareness and coverage. He has no feel for routes behind him in zones. So he mainly struggles in the zone. He fails to track most tight ends or shifty running backs in man-to-man. So he has struggles there. His room to grow in the run game, and he's inconsistent making read and react plays. For his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Christian Sam of the Detroit Lions. You know, he has a lot of potential. He played a very big part in LSU's title win. A few things to clean up. He doesn't do well in zone. Against certain players, he doesn't do well in man-to-man coverage. He has a lot to improve. Maybe someone to take a gamble on and look at. We'll have to see. Someone to keep an eye on for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Miami, standing 6 feet tall, weighing 240 pounds, we have Shaquille Quarterman. So first, Shaquille, he's your prototype intangibles inside linebacker. For his strengths, he has a stubby, compact, well-suited frame to play inside linebacker in the NFL. Has light feet, quick accelerator, has enough speed to beat back to the flank. He has the burst to close in a flash if he has the lane for it. He's an effective blitzer, can capitalize on snap timing, has enough lateral agility and balance to slither his way through traffic. He trusts when he sees and he attacks. He plays even faster when he will test in workouts. He's a classic thumpers attacker, generates explosiveness through his closing speed and compact build. He was a team captain and an unquestionable alpha dog for Miami's defense his entire career. So overall for his college career, Shaquille saved his best football for last in 2019. 2019 he had an all-ACC first team showing. For Miami in 2019 he led the team with 107 tackles. With 51 of those tackles being solo tackles. His entire college career at Miami, he had 356 career tackles. He's the only player in Miami's program history to make 52 career starts. Also, in all 4 of Shaquille's seasons at Miami, he has garnered all ACC notice all those 4 years. With Shaquille getting first team pick for all ACC twice. So he's a very good player. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he misses as many big plays as he makes due to his spotty instincts and his frequent undisciplined playing style. He takes risky angles, attacks the line of scrimmage, gets caught up in trash. So, he also has to be better disciplined, so he's got to stay smart and stay cool and have a cool head on him. He fails to anticipate cut, can crash down blocks. Too often he gets knocked off his feet. He has good strength as a tackler, but has only average arm length to lasso. Only average awareness for his coverage duties, so he's very average in terms of man coverage and zone coverage. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Kevin Minter of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Still someone to keep an eye on. When he wanted him to blitz or tackle somebody or make a play, he was still a solid player for it. Still someone to keep an eye on for sure. Someone that really could do well, especially if we get some linebacking depth for sure. Someone to keep an eye on without a doubt. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Utah State, standing 6 feet tall, weighing 235 pounds, we have David Woodward. So for David's strengths, he's patient, instinctive, he trusts his eyes, he sticks with assignment, won't go searching to make the big play. He keeps his hands busy on the way in the box. It helps to keep his chest clear through initial contact. Looked like a completely different player when he was younger. He may be able to rekindle that spark if he's given time to heal up and return to form. So overall for his college career, he was an All-American linebacker in Utah State. He was also a top high school running back at Washington State, and he redshirted in 2017. He only played in 7 games in 2019 before he was lost for the last 5 games of the season with a knee injury. So he does come with some injury history, but despite that, in 2019 he still posted 93 tackles. He also garnered first team All-Mountain West honors. David has also been listed as one of the big sleeper picks in the draft. Because, he's someone that could shock a lot of people if he can stay healthy. And keep in mind, Utah State has produced some very top good linebackers. 2 linebackers to note they did produce are Kyle Fackrell and Bobby Wagner. So keep that in mind. In terms of his weaknesses, though, his play speed, it took a bit of a step back in 2019. I think part of that had to do with the injury. Could he have been playing hurt already at that point? We'll have to see. He did have some horrendous moments where he just quit on tackle attempts, so he's got to stay strong and keep fighting to the play. He struggled to cover space. He makes up for distance on his junior tape. He has slow feet. He's unable to make timely adjustments. He's not athletic enough to recover once he makes a mistake. So once he makes a mistake, he's done for, so he's got to find a way to still fight after that and try and make the most of it. His size could be an issue. He lacks agility as a stick with backs and man coverage, so he struggles a little bit in man coverage. He gets washed out in the running game, and of course his injury history is notable. For his NFL comparison, he's been compared to free agent linebacker Martell Spag. He's also gotten comparisons with Helani Tavai, the Detroit Lions. Considering Helani's draft-eligible year was very similar to David's draft-eligible year. Because keep in mind, Helani lost much of his 2018 season, the last few games of the year, with a shoulder injury. And, David Woodward missed the last 5 games of his season with a knee injury. So, very solid story coming up. He's just got to stay healthy. He's got to clean some stuff up, get better. Still, of course, there's always room for improvement. Of course, folks, still someone to keep an eye on for sure if he can stay healthy. And the final inside linebacker we're going to go over before we move on to the outside linebackers. We have hailing out of South Carolina, standing 6 feet tall, weighing 219 pounds. We have T.J. Brunson. So for TJ's strengths, his effort and his willingness to make up for physical limitations. He's smart with tracking the ball in high traffic areas. He doesn't lose focus. He drifts from what he should be doing. He doesn't do that. He played both inside and outside linebacker during this time with South Carolina, so he has experience across the entire middle of the field. He's a decent coverage guy, capable of pivoting and carrying backs upfield. Has active hands, helps to affect routes as they pass by. He's smart with the way he attacks blocks, so he can also do well in man coverage. Overall, for his college career at South Carolina, he's a two-time captain. He made 38 career starts for South Carolina. In 2019, in his senior year, he finished second for South Carolina with 77 tackles on the defense. His entire career at South Carolina, he had 283 career solo tackles in those 38 starts. So he's a very solid playmaker for sure. In 2018 and 2019, his South Carolina teammates voted him the Leadership Award on defense. In 2018, he also got Defensive MVP for South Carolina. So yeah, very solid prospect for sure. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he does have horrific moments as a tackler. He falls for below the weight of a typical linebacker at the next level. He could be tried at strong safety if you want to experiment. He can't finish tackles from a difficult angle, so he has to improve his tackling a little bit. Doesn't have a true positional home, won't likely have one when he reaches the pros, so he could be moved around a lot and experimented with. Whatever you want to do with him in your scheme. Frame is already filled out, doesn't have room for more weight, so he might be maxed out here. He'll need to be smarter in the run game, and he has zero impact as a pass rusher. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Paul Magloire of the Indianapolis Colts, so very solid player. He could be moved to safety if you want to experiment too, but still, maybe someone to keep an eye on for sure. So now moving on to the outside linebackers. The first linebacker we're going to go over here, hailing out of Appalachian State, standing 6'1", weighing 219 pounds, we have Akeem Davis Gaither. So Akeem, he was one of those small school studs, so he killed it in the small school district. In terms of his strengths, he moves more like a stray cat fighting animal control. He's a twitched-up, agile athlete, blunt force tackler, launches himself around the field with reckless abandon. His motor's borderline inhuman, never quits on plays regardless of the odds, makes constant hustle plays, returns to the frame from far side of the field to get in on the action. He's the soul of Appalachian State and their defense. He's very light on his feet. He's comfortable operating in coverage, so he can play well in the coverage too, give or take. He pesters tight ends and running backs enough to disrupt their routes. His pass rushing ability is underrated. 2019, he had 23 QB pressures, to keep that in mind. He flashes a hand speed and bend to threaten offensive tackles if he can avoid a clean punch. As confidence as to get, he's very fast with possessing. He doesn't face the most complex schemes, though. Overall, for his college career, in 2019, he was the Sun Belt Defensive Player of the Year. His college career with Appalachian State, he played in 55 games, had 258 tackles, 28 tackles for a loss, 8 sacks, 18 passes defended, 1 interception, and 17 PBUs. Also, he had 2 forced fumbles and a blocked field goal, and that blocked field goal came to seal a 34-31 win over North Carolina this last year. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he has a tweener body type. He may have trouble translating against bigger and faster competition. He was a big fish in a small pond, but Appalachian State did post a 5-0 record in bowl games during his entire career, and Akeem did take on some solid FBS competition. But however, he's built more like a big defensive back than an outside linebacker. He bounces off of too many tackle attempts due to his poor form, reckless pursuit. He's swallowed up by blockers and struggles to disengage. His physicality is a question for some teams based on his competition. So he could be experimenting a bit. He could go to defensive back if you want to. Could experiment with him if you want. For his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Dorian or Daniel at the Kansas City Chiefs. So, still very solid prospect. Very great player. Still, someone maybe to keep an eye on for sure in the later rounds, without a doubt. Someone for sure that could make an impact. So the next linebacker we're going to go over here, hailing out of Minnesota, standing 6'3", weighing 245 pounds, we have Carter Coughlin. So for Carter's strengths, he's agile enough to work stunts on time. His play strength, it can help prevent being rerouted by punches. He's capable of rushing the inside angles against the tackles. His compact body, it does favor in regard to body control. He draws out impatient tackles, swoops past them without taking on much contact so he can get through the line with minimal touching. He has good reactive quickness to affect passing lanes near the line. He knows how to throw off route timing with his physicality and disrupt defense. He's a smart run defender too, doesn't lose sight of the ball. Has an upper tier motor, can keep him alive in place where he's less enthusiastic defenders will disappear. He understands how to utilize his leverage to overcome some anchoring issues. So overall for his college career, he in 2018 and 2019 he was recognized as a second team All Big Ten linebacker. In his senior year 2019, Coughlin, he started all 13 games for Minnesota as a senior. Had 9.5 tackles for a loss and 4.5 sacks. For Coughlin, he started the final 38 games of his college career in Minnesota. He's fourth all-time in Minnesota history with 40 tackles for a loss. He's also third all-time for Minnesota football's program history with 22.5 sacks. So he's been a solid playmaker. He's also been listed as one of the big sleeper picks of the draft. So he could be someone that could shock a lot of people. It's definitely someone to keep an eye on. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he's a short-armed edge defender. May not possess the length needed to match up against NFL tackles. He's a bit stiff in the hips, shows in coverage roles, and when he's asked to turn back in the pocket. Has small strides, which prevents him from attacking outside angles. He doesn't have much room to grow his body as it accumulates to the pro game. He may end up needing to win with hustle and technical refinement, given his lackluster tools, so he may be only able to win with if he works hard enough and can work with technique. He can't make up for his physical limitations regardless of how smart he is with his coverage positioning. He misses a high volume of tackle opportunities in the space, and his tackle radius falls below the norm for an outside linebacker prospect. For his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Joe Osman of the Philadelphia Eagles. Still a very solid talent. He has a few things to clean up for sure. But, still, someone to keep an eye on for sure. So the next player we're going to go over here, hailing out of Clemson, standing 6'2", weighing 230 pounds, we have Tanner Muse. So for Tanner's strengths, he has excellent size and length for the safety position too. So he can play safety and linebacker too, so he's very versatile. He packs a serious punch, plays with a physical edge, he flies the ball, tackles violently, provides the kind of energy that can galvanize the defense, has experience lining up all over the place. He can play center field, he can play deep half safety, he can play box safety, he can play dime linebacker, or he can be the overhang player in nickel packages. So he's very versatile like his teammate Isaiah Simmons. Aggressive moving forward, can work through blocks and contact to find ball carriers. He also shows sharp awareness in zone coverage. He's not easily baited, and he has quality ball skills. Overall for his college career, he played a variety of roles across his 5 years at Clemson. Redshirt in 2015. 2016 he had rotational time. Before 2017 he took over as a starter. In 2017 he played mostly as a center field safety. In 2017 he broke up 5 passes, made 57 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss that year. So, yeah, in 2018, though, he upped it a bit. He had 5 pass breakups, 61 tackles, 2.5 tackles for a loss, 2 sacks, and 2 interceptions. In his senior year, 2019, he moved more in a hybrid role near the line of scrimmage, so he was more on like Isaiah Simmons' shadow there. On there, too, so he was moving around the line like Isaiah was. In 2019, he had 4 interceptions, 54 tackles, 5.5 tackles for a loss, a sack and a half, too. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he moves pretty well for his size. He's not mobile enough to survive full-time at safety NFL, so he may have to change positions. A bit stiff laterally, doesn't have over quick feet. Shows choppy transitions while dropping into coverage. He profiles as a potential matchup piece against tight end. He didn't really see many man-to-man assignments, so he struggles a bit in man-to-man. Plenty of unknown there. So how good is he really in man-to-man? He didn't have much coverage there. He could have a transition to linebacker, but he must hone his instincts and ability to read run fits and work off the blocks. It's doable, but he's a projection that requires a leap of faith. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Kaiser White of the Los Angeles Chargers. So, he started off as safety. He could go to linebacker. He's pretty good in zone coverage. Man-to-man question, that's man-to-man coverage. That's a big question since he rarely did it. Definitely something to keep an eye on. It would be a big-time gamble to take him for sure. If we take Simmons, though, then there's really not much really for Tanner Muse, though. So it really depends on what we do with that first pick. Who we take, whether it be Simmons or Okudah. Still, maybe someone to take a gamble on for sure. Hope it pays off. Definitely someone to keep an eye on. So on the next player, we're going to go over here. Hailing out of Colorado, standing 6'1", weighing 225 pounds, we have Davian Taylor. So for Davian's strengths, he looked decent when he was used as a nickel, and he seems to have a ton of confidence operating in space. He's a former track star, flashes great long speed. So he might be able to play safety as a pro if he can prove he has the coverage chops. So he could be versatile and move around. And he could use as safety if he can get better in coverage. He tries to stay true to his assignment. He has an aggressive attitude, helps his tackling. He's willing to take the fight to his opponent, put his weight behind his contact. He is an engaged player, wants to be around the ball at all times. He doesn't take plays off very often, so he can be counted on the field for durability. Turns overall for his college and high school career, Davian, he didn't play football in high school due to his religious beliefs, which prevented his participation from Friday night through Sunday morning. But however, for college, he did receive his mother's blessing and gave college football a try. He started his college career with Coughlin Community College for 2 years. Had a humble start as a walk-on. He was a starter by the end of his freshman year. And he was also a top 10 JC transfer by the end of his sophomore year when he transferred over to Colorado. In his 2 seasons with Colorado, he was named All Pac-12 in the 100-meter dash and track with a time of 10.5 seconds. So he's very fast, and he can also be a solid playmaker too. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he's a tweener that doesn't have a true positional mold. His ball skills are still a work in progress. He's still new to the game and all of its intricacies. But his possessing speed, it isn't an NFL level at his juncture. He's undersized for a traditional linebacker, shows when he's asked to meet runners in head-on collision. He'll need more help on most of his finishes. He's a drag-down tackler, can't drive his way through the target. Non-factors of blitzer due to his size issues. He will be a finesse-oriented linebacker in the pros. He lacks the bulk needed to take on bigger blockers in the run game. He sacrifices some of his position to make up for strength. He hasn't learned how to navigate crowds yet, and he's blown off course on a regular basis. In terms of his NFL comparison, he's been compared to now retired linebacker Geno Hayes. So, has a lot of upside for sure. Pretty fast too. He's going to need a few years to develop for sure, since he's still relatively new to the game. Still someone maybe to keep an eye on, maybe take a gamble on. Could his best football still be ahead of him? That's going to be the big question for sure. It would be a massive gamble to take him. But could the risk be worth the reward? We'll have to see. So the next linebacker we're going to go over here, hailing out of Michigan, standing 5'11", weighing 225 pounds, we have Khaleke Hudson. So for Khaleke's strengths, he takes a high-octane approach as a tackler. He's an easy mover, can cover a lot of space, has legitimate sideline-to-sideline speed when he gets opened up. He knows how to weave through traffic and avoid blocks, so he knows how to get to the QB and get to the ball. He's undeserving of the tweener label. He'll inevitably get tagged with. He has raw athleticism and recovery speed. It will help to overcome mental lapses. He also played some nickel corner at Michigan, too, and he looked okay doing it, so he has some position versatility, too, so he can move around a lot, backfield a bit. Has an aggressive style in coverage, can shut down tight ends. He's capable in both zone coverage duties and man coverage duties, so he can play either defense, so he can play any coverage scheme. He's an early contributor on special teams thanks to his toughness and endless motor, which unveils some bend when he blitzes around the edge. It's not enough, though, to warrant significant pass rush snaps, so he's more of like a coverage linebacker. Overall, for his college career at Michigan, he was a 37-game starter at Michigan. 2019, he was also an All-Big Ten selection. Also in 2019, he was also a finalist for the Jason Wynn Collegiate Man of the Year Award. In high school, he was a stud running back. With Michigan as a linebacker, he didn't become a full-time starter until his sophomore year in 2017. And also, his sophomore year was the most productive college year of Kalik's career. In 2017, he had 83 tackles, 18.5 tackles for a loss, 8 sacks, 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles. Overall, though, for his 3 years at Michigan, he was still a very productive and impactful player on a strong defense. The bad news is, though, for Michigan, they've had solid teams with him there. The problem is, though, they couldn't beat Ohio State if their life depended on it. That's just been their one issue. They couldn't beat a real team if their life depended on it. Especially Wisconsin. And they also had those issues beating Notre Dame until 2019 when they beat the shit out of them. In terms of his weaknesses, though, I'm getting back on track. He's very small for the position, limits how much force he brings as a tackler. His tackling form and accuracy will need work as a pro. He leaves his feet early, launches at runners rather than taking his time. Has a finesse approach which won't work as well against better athletes that can make contact with him. Doesn't seem fast enough for the safety role, however. He's a grab-and-drag tackler when he latches onto a runner. For his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Matt Milano of the Buffalo Bills. So, he's a solid linebacker, could be mainly used more in coverage, and we need to improve in the pass defense since it was fucking atrocious. Still, for sure, someone definitely to keep an eye on here for sure. He's a very solid player in Michigan. Not gonna lie. Someone to keep an eye on for sure. So the next player we're gonna go over here, hailing out of Miami, standing 5'11", weighing 234 pounds, we got Michael Pickney. So for Michael's strengths, he looks the part for the position. He's well built in his lower and upper body. Also has the playing temperament. His motor runs hot in every play, allows him to chase down tackles from the backside, works through traffic to the ball, has good straight line speed, and a rise with physicality. He's disrupting some nasty hits on tape that if you want to rewatch some of his highlights, he had some pretty good hits for you. He also appears to possess things well. He was very productive in many different areas. He shoots gaps, make negative plays, flashes regularly as a blitzer. He also flashes the ability to make plays in coverage. Overall, for his college career, he was a 4-year starter in Miami. Played in 49 games for Miami. Started 47 of them. He impressed from his jump. His freshman year, he had 61 tackles, 7.5 tackles for a loss, and 2.5 sacks, and an interception. He was the next 2 years, he notched 68 and 74 tackles respectively, with 11.5 tackles for loss those 2 years, and 3.5 sacks those 2 years, and an interception in each of those 2 years. He did consider jumping to the NFL and declare for the 2018 draft, but he chose to come back in 2019 for another year as a senior. His senior year, he had 64 tackles, 12.5 tackles for loss, 5 sacks. Also, in each of his 4 years, he had 2 passes defended in each of those years. So in the 4 years, he had 8 total. So still a very solid playmaker for sure. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he might run a solid 40 time. However, his straight line speed is still a bit misleading. Shows stiffness in his hips that limits his lateral movement and fluidity. He has trouble playing sideline to sideline at the level needed in the NFL. Pursuit angles could improve. He tends to get a bit over-eager, loses leverage while trying to make up ground. Though he is willing and physical in the box, he lacks the size and strength to stack and shed offensive linemen, especially when runs head to his direction. As a cover man, he's undermined by his tight hips and limited awareness. He might never be a 3-down player, so we may only need him down for specific plays. For his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Keyshawn Bierra, the Arizona Cardinals. Was a pretty solid playmaker for sure, can also blitz too. He has the ability to make plays also in coverage, maybe someone to keep an eye on for sure. Someone that could make an impact. So the next player we're going to go over here, this is one a lot of fans have been pretty high on too. Hailing out of Alabama, standing 6'2", weighing 252 pounds, we have Anfernee Jennings. So Anfernee, he's your prototype strength outside linebacker, so he's very strong. For his strengths, he's a thick-framed edge defender, a lot of meat on the bone. He's played defensive end and outside linebacker, so he can play either or. He's been very good in the edge, too. Rotates easily between the two. He times the snap well, launches out of starting gates. He's a brutal hitter when guys are set up on the tee for him. He may be able to rekindle the spark from a sophomore tape if he's given time. So overall, for his college career, in 2019, he was an all-SEC first-team pick. In 2019, he also had 83 tackles, 8 sacks. His 12.5 tackles for a loss was ranked 3rd in the SEC. In 2017, though, he suffered a nasty knee injury in Alabama's 2017 national championship game. So he does come with a bit of an injury history. However, in 2018, he recovered pretty well from that injury, with 14 tackles for a loss and 6.5 sacks as a junior. So the injury didn't look like didn't really slow him down as much. We'll get more into that in a little bit. He's a consensus 4-star defensive end recruit. He was one of the top prep players in Alabama. In his junior and senior years in high school, he racked up a total of 341 tackles in those 2 years. So he's a very solid playmaker and a good tackler. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he's still learning to string moves together and build counters on his rush. He's not the type of knight that can go through openings and find interior penetration. Like I mentioned, he suffered that severe leg injury in Alabama's national championship game in 2017. And that may rob him of some of his athletic ability. So far, it didn't look like it really affected him as much, but still, can he get back to his old form? He may never get back to what used to be. It also could have some effects on him in the long run, too. Could he be injury prone? That's going to be the big question. Other than that, though, he doesn't play up to his weight class in the run game. He's a poor bender, can't turn the cornerback in the pocket. He's not agile or fast enough to warrant consideration in the coverage role. So he's more of a pass rusher than a coverage player. He ponders in the open field position and coverage. It isn't intelligent enough yet, so he may need time to fix that up. He has an inconsistent finishing when he's still engaged with his blocks. His motor looked a lot better as a junior before that injury, but it's borderline lethargic at times. For his NFL comparison, he's been compared to John Simmons of the New England Patriots. He has a lot of potential and a lot of upside as a pass rusher. However, the injury. He's never going to be the same player from that injury. It hasn't affected him yet, but could it have an effect on him in the long run? It will be a big-time gamble for him. But I think the big key for him to be effective, though, is that he needs to stay healthy for him to be effective. It will be a gamble, but I think this one, could the risk be worth the reward? We'll have to see. And the final outside linebacker, the final player we're going to be going over in this video, standing 6'4", weighing 246 pounds, hailing out of Stanford, we have Casey Toohill. So for Casey's strengths, he finished 2019 as a finalist for the William V. Campbell Trophy, also known as the Athletic Heisman, and his intelligence translates on the field. He reads the run well, possesses quickly, has good physical tools, adequate frame, good combination of speed and power, plays with great physicality and effort, has experience lining up on either side of formation so he can move anywhere on the linebacking line, and occasionally inside too, so he can play any linebacker position. He flashes the ability to win inside or outside as a pass rusher, so he's very good in the pass rushing game. Has quick hands and some bend and closing bursts. He routinely finds himself around the ball, so he always tries to get to the ball at all times. Overall, for his college career, it took some time for him to gain traction on the edge, but he did finish strong. Through a redshirt year in his 3 years on the active roster for Stanford, He totaled only 72 tackles, 11.5 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks, 3 batted passes, and an interception. And he only started 5 games his entire college career. He did seize a full-time starting role as a fifth-year senior, though, where he nearly doubled his production overall than his other years. Where in his senior year, he had 60 tackles, 11.5 tackles for loss, 8 sacks, 1 pass defended, and a forced fumble. So, in the 1 year he did start full-time, he was very productive and made most of that opportunity. In terms of his weaknesses, though, he will test well as an athlete at workouts, but his ability doesn't always show up on the field. So he's hesitant, he winds up overpowered by smaller blockers or quickly cut off by offensive tackles. As a pass rusher, he tends to lack a clear plan, so he needs a better plan when attacking the QB. He often runs directly into a block without trying to set up a move, so he needs to learn to set up moves to shed the block. Many of his sacks came via effort. He rarely won quickly on his initial move, and he struggled to threaten outside with regularity. His hands and technique will need some work, so there's always room for improvement. So he needs to get better with his hands. He's got to find ways to keep himself cleaner. For his NFL comparison, he's been compared to Josh Caraway of the Los Angeles Rams. He's a very athletic, and he has a lot of upside, and he looks like he's just reaching just scraping the bottom of his potential here. Still someone, has a few things to clean up, but still someone to keep an eye on for sure. But yeah, anyway, that's going to wrap it up here for another Detroit Lions NFL draft preview. We're almost wrapped up on the draft previews. We got a couple more previews left to go. Like I said, we should have them wrapped up by the start of next week. We got at least one more defensive draft preview for sure for one final area we're going to look over. And then we're going to go over a special teams one. So yeah, we got 2 more previews to look forward to and another episode of Free Agency Wars coming up later on. So, some solid linebacking prospects to keep an eye on for sure. Some solid names to look at if we don't go Simmons with that pick and we go Okudah with it. Or whatever we want to do with the pick. There's been a lot of different draft scenarios we've seen coming up. Really interesting. We're not really going to know who that pick's going to be until it's announced. I don't think they'll have a clear decision on who the pick's going to be until it's time. And they're on the clock. But yeah, still some very solid names to keep an eye on for sure. But anyway, that's going to wrap it up here for this draft preview. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to smash the like button. And if you're brand new to the channel, please subscribe for more of this content and tap that bell for all notifications. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up here. I've been C-Rad from C-RadTV. Hope everyone has a great day, and yeah, peace out.